Are there some key ways that you have found to measure attribution more accurately? That's always a kind of a moving target for marketers.
Yeah, it is. And I'll be honest, I don't have the answer to how we do it, but or how it should be done. How we do that is a combination of different metrics. Like I'm a big believer still in research and syndicated data. I don't think that that's, to use an analogy, the GPS coordinate. It's a little bit more of a compass point that gives us direction.
Mhm.
Understanding the market and where that opportunity is to help guide our efforts is super important. But, we also have a tremendous amount of first party data and zero party data because we're a sports team. There's that emotional connection. People want to share information with us. They want to be kept abreast of everything that's happening with the organization. So we have a slight advantage, but it comes down to a difference between I would say demographic information and what we're trying to do to connect with the market, and then behavioral, what's actually happening on the ground.
Welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we have candid conversations with marketing leaders about the key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by Brand Method Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Kevin Kinghorn, Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Portland Trail Blazers, where he leads marketing and innovation across the Portland Trail Blazers and Rose Quarter. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
So can you, for context, walk us through what falls under your purview across the Trailblazers and Rose Quarter?
Yeah, basically everything that is fan facing or touches a fan. So under marketing here at the Trailblazers, that includes content, creative, broadcast, game ops, customer insights, and then a group that is like focused on brand activation.
So in terms of strategy and execution, what strategy has worked best for engaging Trailblazer fans? Something you maybe didn't expect to be as effective as it turned out, and what made that work?
Yeah, so we always look at it as trying to connect authentically with fans. I don't think that's unique across marketing these days, but identity-driven fandom. And what we find really works, especially in a small market like Portland, is matching value. So trying to understand what our fan base in our market is about and what drives them, and making sure that we're a positive reflection on that. Every survey that we've ever done, all of the research that we've done, always it's what do the Blazers represent, both in the community from a civic perspective, and then just from a personal values perspective. That always ranks extremely high, and it's something that we focus on day to day.
Can you name a time where you had to compromise strategy because of either budget, bandwidth, or buy-in? And what did you learn from working within those constraints?
Always, every day. Sports is an interesting business because the costs, unlike traditional businesses, the costs really are in basketball operations or any athletic operations, whether it's the NFL or NHL, what have you. It is expensive to run the business, and it's not like you can scale like other businesses. So we're not going to build 4 arenas in Portland and drive scale that way. So it is a little bit different. There's always constraints, and so we have to be really focused about our efforts in the marketplace. And that always comes with challenges like, season campaign. Would I like to spend so much more money on just broad awareness and, activation and then giving back to the community? For sure. But we have to make tough decisions and really choose where we're spending our time and energy.
And just to dig a little deeper, what are some ways that you make those decisions? Because, brand is super important, but like you said, the numbers still have to make sense. How do you balance that?
We look really closely at different fan groups and audiences and try and spend money to target those different communities. And the way that we do that is less. If you would have asked me, 15 years ago about how we'd go to market, it would be very different than what we do today. We really try to focus on fan-led marketing and letting fans have the voice. So we have 3 pillars, on our brand platform. It's talking about the team and figuring out how we're communicating the Blazer vision, and then lifting PDX. So how are we supporting Portland authentically? And then that middle pillar is pass the mic. And by that, we're trying to put the brand in the hands of fans and let them tell their stories. And that's how we're targeting specific communities and getting their support and being able to resonate with their audience. That's not just let's go out and connect with a bunch of influencers. I don't really love the term influencer. I like people of influence because I'm not out after someone who I'm just going to pay and they're going to, be a shill for the brand. That's not what it is. It's finding those people in the communities who have authentic audiences and really have a message and making sure that we're aligned with those people and partnering with them and letting them tell the story.
That's awesome. I love that. People of influence. When has the data told you one thing, but your instinct told you something else? And which direction did you go through?
Oh, I've got one this morning that just half an hour just blew my mind. There's multiple teams in the Portland market. We just had a conversation with a team about fan overlap, and we had a 5% overlap with another team. It just like blew my mind. There's no way I thought that. Actually, break. I shouldn't say that. That's a bad example. I shouldn't have shared that. But it could not believe that there was a 5% overlap between our fan base and another fan base in a market as small as Portland. Like, that shocks me. But let me say the question again and I'll give you a different.
Sure. When has fan data told you one thing, but your instinct told you something different? And which direction did you go with and why?
That's a great question. I can talk about retail specifically, but it's who buys our merch and who represents our brand just, on the streets of Portland. I knew that it skewed older and a little bit more conservative. I was surprised by how far it skewed that way when we really dug into the numbers with our partner. But what it didn't do, it didn't change my approach because it's still really important for us to have an audience who's representing the brand in Portland, who's more aspirational. And so, some of the collections, the collaborations we do with local designers really skews younger, and it's not something that would fit what you would consider a typical buyer of merch at a game, but that's intentional. So I guess my gut says continue on that path, even though I don't believe that it's necessarily going to lead to the highest sales because it does something bigger for the brand long term.
What metric or KPI have you stopped tracking because you realized it wasn't actually telling you anything useful about fan behavior and or business impact?
Yeah, how far back can I go with this? Can I early in my career? It's not a metric that I don't track, but there's certain numbers that are vanity metrics to me. So I'm going to go back to a previous company that I worked at where we were number one across the board in pretty much every digital metric. And we would hold up, every month to, our senior executives at that time and leadership and say, hey, look, we're number one in website traffic. That's great. I don't know that website traffic was a result of anything we were doing. I don't know that the audience was necessarily correct. And I don't know if it was really paying dividends for us. And I just let's stop doing that. Let's be really clear about who our audiences are and find different ways to engage with them. And now I'm going back quite a ways, Kelly, to be honest, sort of, advent of social and paid social. And then we sort of flipped the script and stopped worrying about passive metrics and being more intentional about exactly who we're targeting, what that message is, and how that's impacting the brand.
Are there some key ways that you have found to measure attribution more accurately? That's always a kind of a moving target for marketers.
Yeah, it is. And I'll be honest, I don't have the answer to how we do it, or how it should be done. How we do that is a combination of different metrics. I'm a big believer still in research and syndicated data. I don't think that that's, to use an analogy, the GPS coordinate. It's a little bit more of a compass point that gives us direction. Understanding the market and where that opportunity is to help guide our efforts is super important. But, we also have a tremendous amount of first-party data and zero-party data because we're a sports team. There's that emotional connection. People want to share information with us. They want to be kept abreast of everything that's happening with the organization. So we have a slight advantage. But, it comes down to a difference between I would say demographic information and what we're trying to do to connect with the market, and then behavioral, what's actually happening on the ground. I'll sit here and tell you that we're perfect at that. Definitely looking at behaviors and seeing the results of our efforts bucketed within, some of the key segments that we're trying to target is how we look at it and how we measure success.
Awesome. All right. So you oversee both innovation and content. Where does tech improve the fan experience and where does it get in the way of real connection?
I got to break you there too. Innovation, we actually split off. There's another leader who used to be on my team who sits next door. She's phenomenal. So it's not innovation, but marketing tech is something that we still do. But like AI sits in another department. That's not to say we don't do it, but I can still answer the question, but I don't want to misrepresent.
So you oversee content. What have you found that helps to improve the fan experience and build better real connection?
I would say localization probably because it really matters for us, especially in a small market. Everyone likes to use the term authenticity. I want to be authentic in, how we're representing and how we're connecting with audience, but like authentic about what? So for us, we spent a lot of time really defining clearly our segments and trying to understand what drives purchase and what drives fandom, not just from a conversions perspective, but like what is the why behind that? That is where we focus a lot. So, I wouldn't say that our whole content strategy is wrapped around that, but certainly when we're coming up with stories and narratives that we're telling through the season or week to week or even in a game, we're thoughtful about who are we trying to connect with and where is this resonating. And like, look, I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that we're so advanced that that's all we're doing. Clearly, we've got, sort of a master brand vision and that's helping guide content across channels, but, definitely thinking about who's that core audience, who's the new audience, and what's driving them. That is a big focus for our content team.
Awesome. And then last question. What are you working on next that you're super excited about?
In sports right now, just because of what's happened with the RSNs and some of the opportunities that have popped up, like a direct to fan ecosystem is what we're developing. Like sports, let's be honest, we're our own media companies now in a lot of ways, and that's driving a lot of our thinking about how we're marketing. So to give you an example, we have Blazer Vision, which is just a way that people can subscribe directly with us to watch games. It's just like a rich data set for us to understand who's watching and on, a specific device. We don't have to get into Nielsen and ComScore and some of the challenges with those companies, but for us to be able to know who's watching and how, and then, be able to tie more robust intelligence around other things that those people are doing with our organization is really, really important. So as much as possible, using those channels and that information to help guide larger strategy, starting with, though, that direct to consumer engagement.
Awesome. All right, that's going to wrap today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Kevin Kinghorn, Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at the Portland Trail Blazers. We'll have contact information for the Portland Trail Blazers in the show notes for anyone interested in learning more about upcoming events. If you enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.